What's up everyone? Today I'm going to show you how to use the skies in my sky replacement pack that I'm selling now. Sky replacements are a very polarizing issue, if we're being honest. You know, a lot of purists scoff at the idea, think everything should be done in camera. I guess, you know, it escapes them that people have been manipulating images pretty much since the dawn of time. I don't even have to go through the countless examples of people in the past doing it. I'm of the opinion that I don't give a shit how the sausage is made. There's more to an image than just the technique behind it, the story, the mood, all that stuff. So if you're one of those people who doesn't like sky replacements, you should just go watch something else, because that's what we're going to be talking about. And what makes this sky pack unique is that it was actually mostly shot with my Fuji GFX100s. And the reason why that's important is because if you replace skies as often as I do, you would know that finding good skies to use on your images is a constant struggle. We're always searching for them. There are many sky packs available for sale. I own several of them myself. Many times they are just not good enough, for lack of a better word. The resolution is too low. And if you've ever tried to use, say, for example, a 20 megapixel JPEG on a 100 or 50 megapixel image, you quickly see that the quality degrades and it just doesn't match with the rest of the image. Many of these sky packs use these very extreme nuclear fallout kind of skies with all these crazy saturated colors. And those aren't always appropriate for the type of commercial work that I do and even the personal work that I do. I definitely want dramatic skies, but at the same time, I want skies that are actually realistic to blend in to the various scenes. So I took that into consideration when I was out there curating these skies to use. I wanted to use skies that I would use in my workflow that just don't look out of place, that would blend seamlessly into a variety of lighting situations. So that's what we have here. And to start, I'm going to show you the proper way to use these skies. Now, this is not going to be a tutorial that covers how to do sky replacements per se, like how to create the mask. And there's a plethora of options out there for you to watch. That would take way too much time. And honestly, there's as many ways to do it as you can imagine. You can use channels mask, you can use the pen tool, blend if options, etc. You can use the automated options from programs like Photoshop or Luminar, although those results may vary. I find that sometimes they work really well and sometimes they are atrocious, and most of the time they're just not quite right. So for my purposes, I still do it manually. So with that out of the way, we are going to cover various scenarios of images that I've used these skies on. These are images that I've used, the very skies that you can purchase. So we've got an environmental portrait here, a shot here of the Field Museum in Chicago, Griffith Observatory, in various lighting conditions. This is the same shot, just taken at a different time of day. Scotland, and this was also, you know, using these various skies. So we're gonna start with, let's see, which image? We're gonna start with the environmental portrait. And this is kind of where we started. And you're gonna see why I did the things I did here in a second. But before we get there, this is the mask that I made. You can see the hard work's already been done. And this is the sky that I chose to go with. And the reason I went with this sky is because you'll notice that the light that we were using was coming from the right-hand side of the image. But if you actually look at the actual image, the sun is clearly setting on the left. So the lighting doesn't match. And you know, when you're shooting with a model, when you're in the flow of things, I don't want to get too technical and just kind of ruin the mood and the vibe by you know, nerding out over like the direction of the sky. Like, she was just working it and she looked really good in this position. The flash was firing. I wanted to get the far side key on her face. So I just went with it. And then when I took the image into Photoshop, I was like, I could probably make this look a little bit more natural. So to do that, we wanted to use a sky that was appropriate for the task at hand. And when you're choosing skies for an image, you don't want to deviate too far from what's already there. You don't want to dramatically change the lighting or the direction, because it's never going to look real. You see this all the time. You see people using these like gnarly, pukey sunsets on images that just don't look quite right. So choosing the appropriate sky is really the most important thing towards a seamless, realistic sky replacement. So we already have a cloudy situation here, so I chose a sky that mimics the same kind of atmosphere. And we actually made adjustments to the sky. Maybe you can show those in a second. You can see here that we're just trying to match the sky to the actual foreground, to the image that came before it, because that's the second appropriate thing to a convincing sky replacement, is making sure that the image you're replacing it with, or rather the sky and the original image are kind of like in sync as far as color, as far as exposure, direction of the light, etc. There are various ways you can do that. You can use hue, saturation, curves, various masking tools, blend modes. I'm not going to go over that too much because that's beyond the scope of this, because this is more about what skies to use. But you can see here, I have a mask here that's kind of like a gradient. And if I disable that, you're going to see like the actual complete mask of the sky. And one of the things I like to do when I'm replacing skies is I like to blend the original horizon as much as possible, because that kind of helps sell the illusion. And it also helps making the mask a little bit cleaner. You get less harsh like artifacts on the edges. Some skies, you don't have to do that. There are some sky replacements that are just seamlessly perfect, but I like to do it because I feel like it helps. So you can see here, just a simple gradient mask kind of blends in the original sky a little bit and makes that transition a little less harsh. And over here, hold on, right here, we added some lighting effects. You can see here that the lighting is still not quite right, but once we add in our blend modes, creating different light leaks, etc., curves, vignettes, masking, now we're getting somewhere, and we have more of a directional light coming from the right side. And the thing about this type of lighting, it's called motivated lighting. You always want your light sources to be motivated by the practicals in the scene. That can be the sun, that can be a window, that can be a computer monitor, whatever is actually physically in the scene. You want whatever supplementary light to use to be motivated by that source. So that way it looks real and it doesn't look too lit. Although this is a more stylistic portrait. So yeah, it's obvious that flash was used, but we were going for that effect. And then I ran the image through exposure, alien skin, to get this look that I like. And that's the image. Now we're gonna go on to a different type of image. This is a drone shot in Chicago, and it's a completely fake image. I mean, obviously, like, nobody parasails over, downtown Chicago. At least I don't think they do. Maybe they do, but I wanted to do something cool and fun. And honestly, I really like the way this image came out. So we're gonna go and check that image out. And this is the original. We did some cloning, made some adjustments, and there we go. Once again, you can see our mask is made. This was actually done with the pen tool, I believe. It was a little meticulous, but we got our sky. And as you can see, I also added a little bit of image space to the canvas to make it a taller image, because I thought it would look better in more of a square format. And once again, we chose a sky that's more appropriate for the scene. If I would have picked a colorful sunset or a very moody, cloudy sky, it just wouldn't match, because it's clearly a very sunny day. It's clearly the late afternoon, and you can tell by the shadows that are running along the what's it called? The facade of the building here. They're very sharp and they're very directional. So the sun is coming from like right here. It's not quite setting, but it's lower on the horizon. So we want to make a sky that's appropriate for that. And I don't even think I had to make any real adjustments to the sky here. Just some light things, because the sky that I picked was already kind of like the same direction of light, the same time of day that I shot it, etc. So did some color adjustments. I'm just going to show you if we just kind of erase everything we did. And let's say that I wanted to pick like a different type of sky. Let's say this cloudy sky over here instead. There we go. So I already know right away that this sky is just not gonna work, but we're gonna have fun with it anyway. And you can tell right away, just make some adjustments. And by the way, this is just to show you the scale of how big these skies are. Because look, this is like, I believe, a 20 megapixel image from the Mavic 2. And look how much real estate you have with these skies. You can really just kind of warp them. There's so much detail in these skies. These are 16-bit raw files from the Fuji GFX. So you can push and pull the exposure, the colors. And we have a lot of space. We have a lot of room. And obviously, this sky doesn't work. And by the way, there are some skies that have these guys parasailing in there. And that's just because when I was shooting them, there were a lot of parasailers on the coast, and they show up in the shots. You can easily get rid of them using content aware in Photoshop. But that, that's a simple fix. And back to the sky, you can see here that the sun is setting directly in front of the camera. The sun is there. So right away, the lighting just doesn't really work. The tone doesn't work. Like if this sky was actually covering the scene, there would be no shadows on the ground because it would be completely flat lighting, because those clouds would be acting as a giant softbox. So obviously this is an obvious example, but I just wanted to kind of reinforce the importance of using the correct sky as a base, because without it, everything else kind of falls apart. So we are gonna move on now to same thing here. We've got 2 shots of Griffith, and I shot this, I believe, on the Canon R5 with I believe it was the 600 millimeter, the Sigma 150 to 600. Pretty much just chilled there the entire afternoon. And just waited for the light to change. We've got the golden hour shot here. One of the reasons that I change skies a lot, and obviously my clients expect it because we schedule shoots on certain days, and rescheduling shoots is a logistical pain in the ass at times. It can be expensive. People block time from their busy schedules for these things. And if it's not the right weather, it's not always practical to reschedule. And even for my own stuff, like these shots here, they're my own personal work. This isn't client work. But here in Scotland, like I think I was living in Miami when I took this trip to Scotland. And this isn't just in Scotland. This is in the Scottish Highlands. This is Castle Sinclair. It's kind of like out there in the middle of nowhere. It's a beautiful spot. One of my favorite places I've ever personally visited. But when am I going to go there again? Like really, like how often am I going to get the chance to do that? Obviously with COVID, I didn't travel for 2 years. And even now that travel's opening back up, like flights are expensive, gas is expensive. And for someone like me, and I imagine many people out there when they travel, like the chances of them going back to that same spot are slim. So if you don't get the conditions that you want on that specific day, well, like chances are you're probably not going to get the shot that you really want. So what is wrong with creating your own light and making the images that you imagine in your head? Because at the end of the day, it's more about the vision that you have. Like that's what I feel is most important when it comes to images. It's the mood, it's the story that you're trying to tell. It's what are you trying to evoke in a person? Like only other photographers really care. I can guarantee you that. I can guarantee that people who are admiring the photos, they're not going to stop and ask, especially if you do a good job selling it. I mean, if it's obvious that it's fake, yeah, people will question it. But the whole point is to fool them, I guess. So, all right, end rant. Let's move on. We're gonna go to right here, back to Photoshop, and we're gonna go to Griffith Observatory. Let's start with the golden hour shot. Again, we have our mask. This mask is a little bit more crude. I didn't try so hard to make it perfect because I didn't feel like I needed to. Because you're gonna see here, once we add our sky in, the sky is kind of blended in. We added some haze here. It is LA, so that helps blend it in. And I believe, we got right here is the gradient mask that I was telling you about earlier. This is the mask, you know, without any adjustments, just the perfect cutout mask. And as you can see, it's not very convincing. It looks fake. It's such a hard edge on the mask. So again, doing this gradient right here kind of just helps it blend in with the horizon. And we actually also adjusted the opacity. So this is the opacity at 100%, and we brought it down to like 79 to kind of just blend everything together, make everything seem a little bit more realistic. And then, you know, it's just a matter of adjusting the colors, creating light with exposure and blend modes, some masks. And before you know it, you have this moody, kind of like dreamy golden hour scene. And this is where we started from. And the sky replacement really helps sell it. And then just waiting an extra, you know, hour in the same spot, we have more of a twilight shot. The observatory lights up. And you can see here, there's, you know, pardon my layers. I'm very, you know, messy with how I organize my layers, especially for stuff that's not client work. So this is the original sky. I guess there's nothing really wrong with it, but I wanted something a little bit more stylized. So I went with one of my twilight skies. And again, same mask, same idea of blending in the edges and the horizon. And then once you add in all of our different ingredients for selling the effect, we've got ourselves, you know, a completely different scene. And obviously I fixed the horizon because that's a crooked horizon. So, you know, we've got our final images here. So this is Castle St. Clair, and this is the original shot right here. Now the sun was setting camera left, and it was a Scottish day, so it was cloudy. The sun was setting behind some clouds. So it's a very flat image. I really like the composition. The castle's gorgeous. There's just so much history here. I think it tells a beautiful story. It's right on the coast, on these cliffs. We had the ingredients for something amazing, but the light just wasn't cooperating. And I think it was actually, it was like 10 o'clock at night when I shot this, or something crazy like that. So this is the image that I came home with. I guess it's a nice, fine image on its own, but it's not the image that I wanted. So we make our own light. Again, these effects are actually, they look really weird right now because this was done after the sky replacement. So I'm going to show you the sky replacement first. And I chose a sunset sky. Here's the mask. Once again, just a perfect cutout. And this was shot at sunset, but obviously the clouds were covering the sun, so we didn't get those dramatic, you know, shadows and lighting and colors, etc. So the sky that I chose is a little bit more different. That's not really a word, but whatever. You get what I'm saying. Like, this isn't like the most naturally fitting sky for this scene. It's more of a golden hour sunset. Like the sun is just getting under the horizon. And as you can see, we have more of a cloudy sky as the original. So what we did was, again, the same trick that I showed you before. This time I did more of it, like just a gradient mask, as you can see. Without it, there's just this harsh line on the horizon, and it doesn't even look realistic because the water is much hazier and the sky is more contrasty. So we just wanted to sell that effect a little bit. And now we're going to get into our effects for the foreground. So if you see here in the layers beneath the sky, we added some exposure adjustments, and this is just to kind of match the light, the entire ambient scene, to match the exposure of the sky. So it's a natural sunset scene. We have the sun just about to set. It would be darker. It wouldn't be as bright as the original image. Like that, you have to learn how to calibrate your eye to be able to read what kind of lighting would be in a scene depending on the position of the sun, clouds, etc. So this would just drop the exposure, but we wanted to emulate the sun actually hitting the facade of the castle. So using some blend modes here, we created some highlights and, you know, dodging and burning, etc., to create some contrast on the scene, and then added some light flares, added some effects here, added a vignette, added a grade, and added some more color, stylized effects. And you can see here we have something that looks completely different. Those are the scenarios that you can use these skies in. You can also use them in video. I've actually used them to replace skies in videos that I've shot. If you shoot environmental portraits, if you shoot landscapes, if you shoot architecture, like I do a lot for a living, these assets are going to be priceless. There are actually quite a few of them. You can see here, I've kind of divided them. We've got a plethora of options. I've shot at different focal lengths, at different orientations, portrait and landscape, to fit whatever compositions you might have. Different lighting scenarios. So, different twilights, dramatic, cloudy skies, but still capable of fitting into most scenes. I'm not going to go through all of them. This one was actually one of my favorites. It's very dramatic. I don't see it being used in a lot of commercial work, to be honest, but it was just one of the most incredible sunsets I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, how could I not include this? We also have more sunset, golden hour shots over here. You can see here different clouds. And again, these are 16-bit files, so, play them with them to your heart's content. If you want more of a blue sky, if you want to really punch it up with oranges, retain highlight detail, adjust the exposure to make it more airy or bright, etc. You have a lot of wiggle room here to play with. Go back here. We also have some ocean views. Now, for a lot of my architecture, real estate, hospitality work, a lot of the properties that I shoot have views of the ocean. And so I'm frequently putting in ocean views into these windows and balconies. So if you do the same, I got you covered. Some ocean view scenarios here, sunset. Here's La Jolla. Just some options there. And we also have just daylight and late afternoon. Again, this is a very dramatic sky pack. I'm going to release more options as the weeks and months go on, but I wanted to start with something more dramatic. I'll eventually release more blue puffy clouds for more like pristine, pretty commercial stuff. Might do some astrophotography to get some night skies in there. I'm going to be in Arizona later this month. I'm going to be capturing some more Southwest skies. So this is just the first of many packs. And if you buy this pack, I'm going to do something so that you are presented with the option to get some discounts for further packs. So the more you buy, the more you save kind of deal. So we got some, again, blue skies here, just plenty of options. You're going to see that many of the skies, like they're kind of the same, like at points, because I'm moving the camera around because I wanted to give you options as to which sky to use depending on the position of the sun. So for example, these two skies right here were taken on the same day. They're the same sky, but they're in different parts of the sky. Here the sun is on the right side. Here the sun is on the left, just to give you the option. So there are over 100 files. I think there are probably roughly like maybe 70 unique skies, but some of the skies are taken, again, I might have shot one at 24 and one at 50. Like if you're trying to replace the sky on a shot that you shot with a 50mm lens, for example. Just for shits, let's do a complete sky replacement. I'm still not going to do the mask because that would take way too much time, but I'm going to use a different sky for this image of the Field Museum in Chicago. So we're going to start with our initial adjustments that I made to the image, and we're just going to pick a different sky. So let's say you don't want these paragliders in your scene. You want something completely different, maybe something more realistic. Okay, no problem. Go to our sky library and let's see what we have to choose from. So here we have a late afternoon sun. Again, the shadows are very long, very hard, so we want something directional. And this is the sky that I used originally. Let's see if we've got something else that can match. And let's pick this sky here. And let's open that with Photoshop. And right away, this sky does not match, but we can make some adjustments here. We can make it a little warmer. maybe a little bit, raise the exposure to match. We'll do the rest of the adjustments in the actual image. So first thing we're going to do is bring this image into our own. And as you can see, it is massive because we've got so much space here to work with. And first thing we got to do is change that orientation so that the light looks like it's coming from a more believable direction. These clouds are very big. They probably wouldn't be so big in the scene. Let's see. We want to match the horizon. The horizon's about there. So the first thing we got to do, let's just organize this a little bit. These are the adjustments we made. And as you can see here, I'm using the same exact gradient here, but you know what? Maybe this time we don't need that gradient mask. As you can see how much warmer it is here. Clearly, this is not matching. So let's grab our gradient tool. Let's just create a new mask. Oops, wrong one. Oh, wrong direction. And there we go. Just kind of blend it in just a little bit. And we could even now go to our foreground and let's pick a curves layer. We got to bring down that exposure just a bit. And a lot of this is just messing around, kind of seeing what works, what doesn't. We can add a photo filter to make the foreground a little bit warmer. Maybe that's too much. Right here. And we can go ahead, and create a light source. That's about right. Use the linear light blend mode over here. Bring down the fill. Grab our gradient tool. And let's do a radial gradient. The sun would be like right about there. Drop that fill a little bit more. And maybe linear light is not the right blend mode. Let's try overlay. Yeah, that's already looking a little bit better. And we can drop the opacity just a little bit. And we're going to create a big brush and just kind of brush some of that from the upper portion of the image. And again, wouldn't be the most appropriate sky to use for an image like this, but we can make it work. This sky is very desaturated. Let's bring that down a little bit more. And let's just paint it out. I'm going to use a very low flow here, 5%, and just bring some of that detail back into the sky. And as you can see here, now we've got some direction to the light. If we wanted to go a step further, we can grab our curves again, create a vignette, and go in the opposite direction here. And create some shape. And that's what it's all about. It's just creating shape and depth. And this is where we started, and this is where we're at right now. As you can see, we're getting closer. There's a lot more we can do to this image. One of the things we could probably do is bring down the saturation in the foreground, because those buildings are very saturated, and if this is a more cloudy later sky, it probably wouldn't be so saturated. So that's looking a little better. And we've got a good base here. Let's see if we can make some more adjustments to our sky. This is our sky right here. Maybe, no. Bring it down a bit, no. Maybe shrink it a little bit. And because we don't have the paragliders in this shot, the crop probably doesn't have to be so square. I'll probably crop it to be more of a landscape, maybe a 16:9. So we're getting there. Let's see. Let's take the sky layer and just do some adjustments that only impact the sky. Go to the highlights, maybe add some cyan. No, that's not gonna work. Forget the color balance tool. Let's go into curves. And obviously this is not rehearsed. This is me in real time making these adjustments. So it is not as polished, but as you can see, it's just a matter of finding the right balance. Yeah, there we go. That looks a little bit better. Just taking some of the red out of the sky to make it match a little bit more. You can see what we did there. And we can even drop the opacity a little bit. Is it opacity or opacity? I'm not quite sure how you're supposed to pronounce it. But here we go. We still have our sun layer there. And what did I do here? This is from the previous image. We don't need that. We don't need that. And this is a gradient fill that I did with linear light. This will create some haze just there around the horizon. And now we can go into more of a global mindset. The adjustments we make going further are going to impact the image as a whole. I'm going to drop that linear light layer a little bit more, create a stamp visible layer, and let's go into Luminar. I love this software for a variety of reasons. A lot of people use it for the sky replacements, but there are several reasons why. We'll skip this for now. I don't use Luminar for sky replacements. First, the results really do vary. Sometimes it does work really well, but even when it works well, it doesn't give you the option to export a mask. And very often, as you've seen, I like to play around with the mask, adjust it manually to my taste. So it just takes away too much control. But really, most of the time, it's just not that good. It's not quite there yet. AI is going to get there. There's going to be a time, and it's not too far off in the future, where these AI softwares are going to pretty much make this seamless and it's going to look amazing, but it's not there yet. And the other thing you could do with Luminar, if you wanted to, is you can import your own skies. But in my experience, it makes the software just crawl like a turtle. So I still go manual. What I actually use Luminar for is the various AI lighting tools. So for example, you can do a lot of cool shit. And this is not a Luminar sponsored video. It's just, the software that I use. So here we have a sun that we can create out of nothing. We can move it over there. And if we make some adjustments, we're going to just take these adjustments to the extreme just to see what it's doing and what we want it to do. And I like to reduce the number of rays, increase the glow amount of the sun, the radius, all that. Let's find the right position for it. Yeah, it's about right about there. And let's randomize this bad boy. That looks about right. Yeah, something like that could work. There we go. And we can just reduce the overall look to it, drop. And really, when you're making these kind of adjustments, less really is more. Like, I never go too extreme, but it's just about selling the look. And the glow effect, I love the glow effect in Luminar. It just creates this very dreamlike haze to a scene, and you can adjust the parameters. Again, we're gonna drop this down to maybe a 12. And the last thing that I like to do is just add a little bit of detail, just to kind of compensate for the softness of that glow effect. Not too much. Again, you can see that I'm keeping it to a minimum. And sometimes the accent works really well, although I don't think it's doing us any favors here. It's kind of killing the mood. So we're gonna take our sun rays layer and let's reduce the penetration a bit. That's a weird name, penetration. And glow, bring that down to like 20. Okay, so we've got our base here, and I'm gonna wait for that to process. And then once we have the luminar layer exported, then we're gonna make further adjustments. We can drop the opacity a little bit. We can create a mask, and I'm not too fond of what it's doing up in the upper portion of the sky. And here's a cool thing to keep in mind. Once you make your mask layer, you can always refer back to that selection. You can actually save the selection. So actually I already did it, but you can see it here. But if you wanted to, oops, go back to the RGB. If you wanted to, you could, see, this is why you need to label your layers. So we have the selection here. You can just go to Save Selection, Sky. And now when you go back into your channels, there it is. You have your sky layer, and so you can select it. And actually what I want to do is select the inverse of it, because, so just select inverse. And I want to paint out, oops, wrong inverse. I just want to paint out some of the glow effect of the luminar layer to retain some of the highlight detail in the sky. So here, I'll show you what you did. If you see, and you can see that the luminar layer, it just created some more shape to the image, natural direction to the light. We really wanted to, we could add some more haze, but I think this is looking good. Photoshop actually has some pre-built LUTs that you can use that are based off of film emulations, which sometimes they can look really cool. I like using the actually the Kodak 2393 is what I like to use. This is a little much though. I think there's a little too much red, so what we can do is just clip a color balance layer and bring some greens back into it. And yeah, we've got, you know, a nice look. Drop that opacity down to like 30%, just to bring some contrast. And there you have it. I would probably just mask out some of that LUT in these corners. Too much detail is being lost. And there you have it. This is the image that we started with, and this is where we're at now. Again, if this was for a client, you know, or something for my portfolio, I would spend considerably more time, but this is just to give you some insight into my process, how to use these skies. And really, you can kind of take almost any sky and make it fit your scene if you know how to make it match the light, and if you know what to look for the properties of light. Like, for example, things further on the horizon should be a little less contrasty, especially later in the afternoon when you've got the sun setting, you know, in such a directional capacity. So just things like that you can keep in the back of your head and apply to your own images. All of that is going to go a long way towards selling the illusion of the sky replacement. And again, you know, I just picked this sky at random. You have plenty of options to choose from. And with other scenarios, you could even do something like, for example, if we disable all of these adjustments that we made and we just go back to our sky layer, you could drop the opacity. And this is actually something that I should show you. If we go back and crop this image, and we've got it at, now you can see that The sky blends even more. We're at 79% opacity. This was at 100% for all of our adjustments. And once we make these adjustments here, we could even drop. Actually, the adjustments were done when the sky was at full opacity, so we probably don't want to use those anyway, but you get the idea. You could take the sky. You don't have to use the entire image. You can use a portion of it. You can drop the opacity and it'll blend. This works really well if you have a clear sky to begin with. If you have a busy sky beforehand, it's not going to work so well because you're going to get ghosting from the sky that's underneath. But if you have a clear sky and you want to replace it with some clouds and some texture, but you don't want to go too far, you can drop the opacity to like 66%. And here you have, a much more balanced, more grounded sky replacement. And if you zoom in, like, who's gonna know? Who's gonna know? Seriously, before, after, who would ever guess? Actually, I kind of like this more than what we originally did. So I can actually just take this luminar layer and bring it all the way down. Maybe just paint out some of the mask and definitely drop the opacity on this color lookup. And there you go. Might be a little bit too warm, so we can top it off with a trip into Camera Raw. So Camera Raw, make the whole scene a little bit cooler, and then where are the masking tools? Radio gradient, there we go. Just go into the radio gradient, and I don't really use Camera Raw that often. If you can't tell, I'm so used to Capture One, so I don't remember exactly. There we go, dehaze. We can create some haze on the horizon here. Drop the clarity a bit, and let's bring down and just create like some subtle haze where the sun is kind of meeting the horizon here to kind of sell the effect a little bit. And there you go. And there you have it. Where we started, where we're at, just a moody composite. And it's just amazing what a new sky can do for an image. It can give it a whole new look on life. Okay, maybe that's a little bit dramatic, but you get the idea. So hopefully this gave you guys a very cogent perspective on what these sky packs can do for you, what my sky library can do for you, how to use it, best practices, etc. And I can't wait to see the composites that you make with your own skies. So I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, you want me to elaborate on anything further, don't hesitate to reach out in the comments. Thanks again for watching. Again, if you buy the sky pack, it's actually didn't even mention the price, but it's $85 to start. That is the inaugural promotion for the first month. Starting today, it is $85. After the first month, it is going to go up to $130. If you buy the sky pack, you will get the options for discounts for further packs that I create in the future. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but rest assured, like, I will appreciate the loyalty. And yeah, that about covers everything. I hope you got something out of it. Even if you don't buy the sky pack, at the very least, I hope that you learned something and that something here is proven valuable for your own work. So thanks again for watching, and I will